Today we're going to take this and turn it into this. Stick around. Hi guys, today we're going to be working on this VW 36 horsepower fuel pump. This is going on my 1956 oval window barn find that we've been working on. I was going to put together the parts for the engine and found I needed a good fuel pump. So we're going to have to restore this one. We'll do a full restore, plate all the screws, clean it all up real good, and add this rebuild kit. And what we need to do is, I don't have a tool for setting the preload on these. You need to set the preload on the diaphragm so when it starts up it doesn't wreck the diaphragm. So I'll put a picture of what the factory one looks like up. I'm going to go ahead and build one out of plate steel and just some screws or bolts, and we can make it adjustable. I think the push rod on the tool needs to be like 35 millimeters. That's the kind of preload you want to put on there. So we'll go ahead and make one of those, clean this all up, replate the parts, and then we also need to make some new fuel lines. These are pretty bad. So I'm going to go ahead and use these as templates, use some new tubing. We'll replate the fittings, and I have some new ferrules. So we'll go ahead and make those. And first thing we need to do is put this in the ultrasonic cleaner, kind of use the heat to really get rid of this grime so we can get at all the screws, nuts, and bolts on here. So that's on the agenda for today. Okay, so this has been soaking for about an hour in pretty hot. I have it almost all the way up on the temperature. And we'll go ahead and see what it looks like here. So I got most of it off. Loosened up a lot of it. This side's good here. So go ahead and just brush this clean a little bit. Okay, so at least have the dirt off of it. And we'll go ahead and start to disassemble. Okay, I have it in my vise here with some rubber jaws to protect it. And we'll go ahead and get this bolt off here. It's a brass cap under, and this is a fuel filter. This is in good shape, actually. We'll just clean it up. And a fiber washer. That should be in the rebuild kit. And we'll go ahead and take the cap off here to the diaphragm. So I'll take this over to the bench and see if we can carefully get this diaphragm out. But again, this is going to be in the rebuild kit, so not really saving it. Okay, we have it back at the bench here. We'll start with the cap here. These bolts here are screws we're going to replate. And then on the other side, there's a couple valves under this plate. So we'll go ahead and remove those. The valves on here are just like a fiber material. That's what's left of the inside. You don't want to, this is pressed in here, this brass fitting here. So you really don't, you don't want to remove that. There's really no need to. And there are some small springs. These may be in the rebuild kit. We'll have to take a look. And these are the valves. These are in great shape. So these usually don't come in the rebuild kits. There are some tooth washers on here that are hard to find. They're like a kind of a cone shape because these are countersunk screws. So they're hard to find. And the other ones are stuck here. So you want to try to save those if you can. Use a little pick to try to get them out of there. It went flying. Hopefully we can find it. There's the other one. Have to track down the one that went flying. And then there's a gasket on this side, which that'll be in the rebuild kit. Okay, I found the other little lock washer there. So we have all three of them. Now we'll take this diaphragm off. Well, actually, we're going to have to push this pin out first to release it on the inside there. So we'll go ahead and push this pin out and take it over to the vise. Okay, so here we have it. The inside. This is what the push rod pushes on. And this is hooked to the diaphragm like that. So now that we got these bare, we'll go to the bead blaster and bead blast these housings up here. Okay, I have a piece of scrap metal here that we can use for the tool. And I'll just take the spacer plate here that goes on the motor and put it there, and we'll trace around it. And then I have a center punch that we can punch the holes. Sure we don't move it here. There we go. So we have the outline. We'll cut this out with a plasma cutter and then drill our 3 holes, tap them, and we'll just put a bolt in there. Okay, so that wasn't working. What happened is the tip is just plugged up. So I have a new tip and a new like cone piece here. We'll replace those two. That worked a little better. So that made a real clean cut. Okay, so we have it all drilled and tapped. We're going to just put a shorter, these are 8 millimeters by 1.25. Those are just guides. And then this one here is a longer one. This is a 50 millimeter bolt. And I have a little jam nut on there. And we'll go ahead and set this at 35 millimeters. It's like right on. So I have 35 millimeter stick out here. And tighten that one down. So our tool's good to go. Set the preload. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wire these up for plating. These are the screws for the top cap and the fuel line fittings. This is a 22 gauge wire, pretty thin. You don't want to leave a mark on there where the wire is, but you also don't want too thin, or you can't get enough current through it. But these are not going to take a lot of current, so this wire should be fine. Bolts I just wrap around the threads once like that. During plating, you can take it and screw it, down a little to try to get the spot that's under the wire. So there we have a wire to hang. I have one extra. I only need 3. I'm going to do one extra since I have it. These will just kind of do the same thing. Probably wire 2 up at a time. Kind of going around 1.5 times. And these I probably will just, move a little bit to get it fully plated. There we have that. So we'll get these in the plating solution and then we should be good for reassembly. Okay, I have it set to go into the plating solution here. This is out of the degreaser. Spray it down with distilled water. Just a couple seconds in a acid bath. More distilled water. Into the plating. And now let it sit for 20 minutes. So it's been 20 minutes and they come out pretty good. So they're good to go. This bath might be getting a little old. I probably have to redo it. It's not quite as shiny as I'd like it to be, but it'll be okay. Okay, we're ready to reassemble. I have my rebuild kit here. We have to open up our plated screws, bead blasted case, and just polished up this brass. This is the top of the fuel filter. And our special tool we made, it's ready to go, 35 millimeters. According to the manual, that's what the preload needs to be when we install the diaphragm. So we'll go ahead and open this up. These rebuild kits are available out there, but they're a little expensive. I don't know, $50. And then it depends where you get it from on what's included. I got a new spring. You actually have new components for the push lever. New spring, new small spring. Gasket. Looks like just one spring. And then a new pin with circlips on it, which I don't know if that'll work on this one. Doesn't look like it. So we'll use the original pin. That. These are like questionable too. Probably use the originals there. Yeah, the original's not very worn, so I'm going to use the originals there. I have better gaskets than these. And this should work good for here. Hopefully. See, that doesn't fit in there very well either. The original gasket. I think I have another. I might have a new gasket better than this one. This is the original. And the new one looks a little different shape. So let me check if I have that. So I do have a partial kit here. And yeah, this one looks a little better. Yeah, we'll go ahead and use that one. Fits in there good. It's more like the original. These are a lot better too than these real thin paper ones. And I have two new small springs. So between the two kits, we're able to get one. New fuel filter. All right. So first thing we need to do is put the valve assembly in. That down. Then I just use a little tiny bit of grease as kind of glue to hold the spring in. Just a little tiny bit. And same with this other spring. This is our cover plate. Just make sure these valves are working. This one presses down. This one goes this way. So the cap's all set, valve assembly. And then this is kind of a tricky part, getting this back in. Goes on here like this. When you're looking at it, this tab is bent to the left. And what I'll do is put some grease on here to hold it together. And actually, we'll start the pin. Grease on there. All right. This piece now will drop in there. This is a tricky part, trying to get it lined up. Trying to get it close, and we might have it. And then what I'll do is take it to the vise and set it on here and tap this pin in. Okay, now before we press in the pin, I'm just going to use a little bit of this clean and prime, and then followed up with some sleeve retainer. This is a high temperature. This stuff is super strong, so that should hold that in there good. It will take some heat to get it out, so just have to remember that. And just put a little drop on there, a little drop in here. And that should hold that pin in there. So now that we have this lever in place, pinned in, we need to add the spring that goes behind it, and that comes in the rebuild kit. And this goes in real simple. You just drop it in behind the lever, and then I just use a pick, like an angle pick, and you just push it down and push it behind the lever. There's a little pin behind there, and that's all it takes. Okay, we're back at the bench here. First thing we're going to do is put the fuel filter in. That goes in like that. Little sealing fiber seal that came in my rebuild kit. I just polished this brass plug up with on a wire wheel. Tighten that up. So that's good to go. And we'll put our spring in and the diaphragm. And then this just gets pushed in and hooked onto this little lever in there. That's good to go. Our cap. And this, you just want to make sure the inlet is to the back of the pump. And these we just leave in there loose like this, so we can go ahead and use the tool we made to set the preload on the diaphragm. And then once the preload's set, we'll tighten this down. So over to the vise. Okay, so now over at the vise, I have one soft jaw in. And we'll take our tool we made, put it into the fuel pump, and then into the vise here. We'll clamp that down until it's flush against, seated against the flange. And what that's doing is pushing the diaphragm up and giving it some slack. So now we will slowly tighten these down, working from side to side. And there we have it. So now there's the proper amount of preload on there, so it won't tear the diaphragm when the engine starts. Okay, so this gets warped after a while, just all the heat cycles and it being bolted down here, you know, over 70 years. So what happens is, you know, it actually warps, and there's that much gap, which is bigger than the gasket. So it will leak. If you got oil coming out of the tin that's underneath your fuel pump, I'm almost positive it's going to be that this is warped and your gasket's leaking down here. So what we'll do, I can show you how far off this is going to be, is we'll just put some Sharpie on here. This doesn't have to be 100% flat. You just want it better than the thickness of the gasket. So I'll put it on here. And this is just a piece of tile, like slate tile, polished slate tile. You can use glass. So that's just a couple passes. And you can see it's just touching on the edges there. So we'll keep doing that until we get it flat. Probably would have been better to do this before we put it together, but I already have it together. So we're doing it now. So it's getting there. It's starting to touch down here. Almost there. You always want to keep it flat too. You don't want to lean it towards the bad edge. You don't want to take too much off or you start to throw off the positioning of that push rod. But now we have it nice and flat. So that's good and flat now. That well within the tolerance of a gasket. Okay, so here it is. All set to go with our new fuel lines. Came out really nice. And our preload jig so we can do some more. I have a few more to do, but this one's good to go for our barn find project. Getting really close on the engine. The only thing I have to do is a generator yet. I want to get a thin slot generator, which is minus, I think, 58 when they stopped, I believe, with the thin slot generator. So we'll need to do that, and then we'll be on to the engine build and back on the chassis also. So that's it for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Please subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.